For 20,000 years, the galaxy thought it had forgotten the name of humanity. Then one day, from the dark void of dead space, an ancient ship awakened, carrying the flame of vengeance from a civilization thought extinct. Captain Saris Kale gazed out through the observation deck of the Astra Vigil. The emptiness of Sector 47 stretched before him, a sea of darkness punctuated only by the faint glimmer of distant stars and the scattered debris of what once had been a thriving space lane. The year was 22,024 by the Covenant calendar, 20,000 years since humanity had abandoned the Galactic Council. The Valdrax Dominion, a post-human invasive alliance, had formed in humanity's absence and now occupied more than 70% of the former Earth Alliance's territory. The remote regions of space, known as the Silent Sectors, were considered dead zones, devoid of habitable planets, filled only with cosmic fragments and ancient ruins. "Captain," Lieutenant Marakel's voice broke through his contemplation. "We've received new directives from High Command." Saris turned, his silver-blue eyes reflecting the dim light of the bridge. His uniform, a dark charcoal adorned with the crimson insignia of the Valdrax patrol fleet, hung perfectly on his tall, lean frame. "Let me guess," he said. "They're still obsessing over those ghost signals?" "Yes, sir. Admiral Talonvex himself has ordered us to reverse the situation in Sector 47. The ancient signal has resurfaced, and Command believes it's significant." Saris sighed. The Valdrax Dominion had spent decades dismissing these silent sectors as worthless, only to suddenly develop an intense interest in them. Something wasn't adding up. "Show me the sector map," he ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Sector 47, a nameless star system with 3 shattered large satellites, the ruins of a crimson city named Redfall, and the debris of ancient warships scattered throughout the void. The cosmic winter of 22,024 cast everything in a weak light, with an ion mist shrouding the entire region. Debris from hundreds of Earth Alliance vessels drifted aimlessly through space, along with automated exploration stations that had long fallen into disrepair, with no one left to maintain them. "And the signal?" Saris asked, studying the hologram. "It's unusual, sir," Mara replied, adjusting the display. An ancient subspace signal repeating a single term, "Wake." "Our analysts haven't been able to decipher anything beyond that." Saris narrowed his eyes. "Wake," he repeated. "Just that?" "Yes, Captain, it repeats endlessly." Somewhere in the depths of that dead sector lay secrets the Valdrax Dominion desperately wanted to contain, or exploit, and Saris had been chosen to uncover them. "Set course for the signal's origin," he ordered. "But maintain distance. I want to observe before we engage." Little did he know that elsewhere in the darkness of Sector 47, aboard an ancient vessel named Eidolon, Captain Rowan Trent, the only awakened commander of humanity's ancient warship, was preparing to shatter 20,000 years of silence. The cosmic stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. The bridge of the Astra Vigil hummed with tense activity as they approached the heart of Sector 47. Officers maintained a disciplined silence, broken only by the occasional beep of monitoring equipment and hushed technical exchanges. "Signal detected, Captain," announced the communications officer. "The wake pattern has intensified. It's coming in pulses now." Saris leaned forward in his command chair. "Run a full spectrum analysis." The main screen flickered, displaying a series of energy spikes, an ancient code sequence repeating with mechanical precision. "Wake, wake, wake." Lieutenant Marakel's fingers danced across her console. "Sir, I'm cross-referencing with the Valdrax identification matrix." Her eyes widened. This can't be right." "Speak freely, Lieutenant." "The signal matches the structure of Project Eidolon, believed to be the final freezing fleet project of the Earth Alliance." A hush fell over the bridge. Everyone knew the stories, legends, really, of the Earth Alliance's final desperate act before their apparent extinction. The creation of sleeper ships that would preserve the last remnants of humanity in cryogenic stasis. "That's impossible," Commander Darius Finch said, stepping forward from his tactical station. "The Eidolon project was confirmed destroyed during the Purge campaigns." "Evidently not," Saris replied, his voice cool despite the implications. The captain tapped his communication panel. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately. Tactical alert." Within minutes, the bridge filled with the ship's key personnel, engineers, science officers, and security specialists. "Ladies and gentlemen," Saris began, gesturing toward the main display. "What we're seeing may be just a data leak or an ancient virus cycling through abandoned systems." "Or," Commander Finch interjected, "we're facing an Earth Alliance vessel that somehow survived." The statement hung in the air, heavy with possibility. "If it is Project Eidolon," the chief engineer added, "we should consider immediate withdrawal and request reinforcements." "We are the Valdrax Dominion," Saris replied firmly. "We do not flee from echoes of the past." Even as he spoke, the radar screen flickered. A massive silhouette gradually emerged from the darkness. An angular hull, old railgun barrels, and faded lettering that spelled SSV Eidolon, one of the oldest Earth Alliance vessels still in existence. One by one, the signal lights on the Eidolon activated, its fusion engines igniting after 20,000 years of dormancy. The bridge crew of the Astra Vigil fell silent. No one dared to activate weapon systems. Internal communications reported, "Eidolon is casting a shadow over the Redfall satellite. Signs of main cannon activation detected." Captain Saris Kale ordered weapons readied, but he couldn't hide his own uncertainty. None of them could be sure whether the Valdrax could defeat an ancient Earth Alliance vessel. The technology might be old, but it had been built for war, a war that had once brought the galaxy to its knees. "Open a channel," Saris ordered. "All frequencies, ancient naval bands included." The communications officer worked quickly. "Channel open, sir." Saris stood, straightening his uniform. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Saris Kale of the Valdrax patrol ship, Astra Vigil. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Seconds stretched into an eternity before a response came. A cold, echoing voice that sent chills through the bridge. "All non-human vessels vacate this sector immediately. Last warning." Saris signaled for the channel to be muted. "Maintain position but increase our defense grid. Let's not appear threatening, but be ready for anything." As he gave the order, the Eidolon's weapon ports opened, revealing a row of ancient railguns that began to glow with building energy. "They're targeting us!" shouted the tactical officer. "Evasive maneuvers," Saris commanded. But the Eidolon wasn't aiming at the Astra Vigil. Instead, it fired a single, precise railgun round at the abandoned radar station, Redfall Beacon. The station exploded in a brilliant flash. Ancient data destroyed in an instant. The message was clear. The Earth Alliance had no interest in abandoned territories or emerging powers. They were only concerned with re-establishing communication with their sleeper fleet. "Captain," Marakel said, her voice hushed, "I believe they're attempting to activate something within the sector, possibly an old communications network." Saris nodded slowly. "And they're eliminating anything that might interfere with that process." His communication panel chirped. The face of Admiral Talon Vex appeared, sharp features contorted with barely contained fury. "Captain Kale," the Admiral snapped, "explain to me why an Earth Alliance vessel is active in your sector, and why you haven't neutralized it." "Admiral, we're assessing the situation. The vessel appears to be from the legendary Eidolon project." "I don't care if it's crewed by ancient gods," Vex interrupted. "No trace of that signal can be allowed to spread. I'm dispatching 3 heavy escort ships of the Vanguard class to your position. Your orders are to contain this situation by any means necessary." The transmission cut off before Saris could respond. Sir, Mara said quietly, if that truly is an Earth Alliance sleeper ship. Saris finished her thought. Then humanity never went extinct. They've just been waiting. Aboard the Eidolon, deep within its massive hull, Captain Rowan Trent emerged from his cryo chamber. His face was weathered, his eyes heavy with memories of a war that, for him, had ended only days ago, though the rest of the galaxy had moved on 20 millennia. He stumbled slightly, his muscles adjusting to movement after their long dormancy. The automated announcement echoed through the chamber. Eidolon cued for awakening protocol. Rowan steadied himself against a console, taking in the ancient technological principles that had sustained the ship through the ages. The fusion reactor remained stable. The command chair still transmitted energy, and the railgun mechanisms had preserved their deadly efficiency. "Status report," he commanded, his voice hoarse from disuse. The ship's AI responded promptly. All systems operating at 92% capacity. Captain, cryo revival sequence initiated for primary crew. Current location, Sector 47, formerly designated as the Orion's Shield Defense Zone. Rowan moved to the bridge, where tactical displays revealed the final phase of the Alliance War. The information was outdated by 20,000 years, but it provided the last known state of humanity's struggle. "Begin awakening the elite combat team," he ordered, "and establish a secure connection to the Sigma 47 relay, if it still exists." Throughout the massive ship, dozens of cryopods hissed open. Elite warriors of the ancient Earth Alliance emerged, gathering in the tactical room. They wore the old naval uniforms, hardened armor, and first-generation laser weapons, but their eyes revealed an undiminished determination. A young officer approached Rowan. "Lieutenant Kaya Drake reporting for duty, sir. Weapon systems ready at 92% capacity. Sigma 47 relay detected within 50 million kilometers." Rowan nodded. "Good. Set course for the relay. We need to re-establish the jump network." "Captain," Drake hesitated, "our scanners show a Valdrax vessel monitoring us." "Let them watch," Rowan replied coolly. "They're about to witness the resurrection of the Earth Alliance." The Eidolon activated the Sigma 47 relay, collecting signals to open the ancient jump network, allowing Alliance vessels to move instantaneously across vast distances. Aboard the Astra Vigil, Saris observed this activity with growing concern. "Why aren't they engaging directly?" Commander Finch wondered aloud. "Their objective seems more sophisticated than pure combat." "They're reactivating something," Saris replied. "Something bigger than just one ship." As the situation escalated, tension grew between Saris and Admiral Vex. During their next communication, the disagreement became explicit. "I want to monitor and gather intelligence on their technology," Saris argued. "This is an unprecedented opportunity to study Earth Alliance engineering." "Your orders are to report directly to the Valdrax Political Council," Vex countered, his face flushed with anger. "Launch a lightning attack to prevent humanity's resurgence. Any hesitation will be considered insubordination." The confrontation left Saris conflicted. He feared that blindly following orders would squander any chance to learn from Alliance technology, while Vex feared that any delay would lead to chaos throughout the Empire. The crew of the Astra Vigil reflected this uncertainty. Many had grown up hearing legends of the Earth Alliance and doubted an easy victory. Some younger officers began to question, "Are we exaggerating the threat of people who've slept for 20,000 years? Have they advanced or fallen behind?" In the crew quarters, heated debates broke out. If the Alliance returns, is there a chance to salvage what remains? Events accelerated when the Eidolon plunged into the asteroid cluster known as the Echo Belt, launching light cruisers to scout ahead. The three Vanguard ships closed in, and fierce combat erupted. The Astra Vigil's defense systems fired interceptors, but failed. The ancient railguns moved with precision, tearing through the starboard side of one Vanguard ship. A communication channel opened, and Captain Rowan Trent's face appeared on the Astra Vigil's screen. His expression was cold, his voice unwavering. "We have returned to reclaim what was lost. Abandon all hope of conquering us, or destruction will be your only choice." The breath of fusion thrusters spread throughout space, causing interference in Valdrak's signals. Cirrus stared at the relay map, realizing that the Earth Alliance was reactivating the ancient jump network that the Valdraks had long considered useless. Silently, he entered a command. "Switch to Channel 7. Report all information about Project Eidolon." In that moment, Cirrus made a choice that would alter the course of the galaxy. The battle at the Black Mist Pit erupted with blinding intensity. An ancient relay station named Sigma Prime lay deep within the Ion Mist region, calculated by the Earth Alliance to activate a series of consecutive relays. The sleeper fleet, Eidolon, along with 4 other ancient vessels, Arcanum, Aurora's Edge, Dreadwraith, and Oblivion's Wake, emerged from the misty curtain at dawn, conducting a coordinated assault that caught the Valdrak's forces by surprise. Admiral Talon Vex had mobilized the entire frontline force, the 1st and 2nd fleets, totaling 15 large warships and 70 escort vessels. The massive Valdrak's flagship, Imperator, led the formation, its imposing silhouette dominating the battlefield. "All vessels, maintain formation Delta," Vex commanded from the Imperator's bridge. "Target the lead Alliance vessel and concentrate fire." The Earth Alliance ships moved with unexpected coordination, as though they had trained together only yesterday, rather than having been separated by millennia of frozen sleep. The Eidolon fired directly at the Imperator's main deck, destroying its cloaking system with a single, devastating shot. Valdrak's defense systems responded with ruthless efficiency. Plasma weapons and large-caliber lasers illuminated space. But the ancient railguns of the Alliance penetrated layer after layer of armor with surgical precision. Aboard the Astra Vigil, Cirrus watched the battle unfold with a growing sense of dread. The Alliance ships were outnumbered but fighting with a tactical brilliance that the Valdrak's commanders seemed unable to counter. "They're not just fighting," Marrakel observed. "They're systematically targeting communication nodes and relay interfaces." Cirrus nodded. "They're isolating the Imperator from the rest of the fleet." On the Imperator's bridge, chaos reigned as systems failed, one after another. Admiral Vex's commands became increasingly desperate as the flagship shuddered under the relentless Alliance assault. "Captain Kale!" Vex's distorted image appeared on Cirrus's communication panel. "Bring your vessel in to support the Imperator, immediately." Cirrus hesitated. The tactical display showed clearly that the Imperator was already critically damaged. Sending the Astra Vigil into that firestorm would accomplish nothing except the loss of more lives. "Admiral, the Imperator should withdraw and regroup," Cirrus suggested. "The Alliance forces have—" "You will obey orders, Captain!" Vex shouted, his face contorted with rage and fear. "The Imperator will not retreat before these relics." The transmission dissolved into static as another hit rocked the flagship. In that moment of deepest darkness, Cirrus made a discovery that chilled him to the core. The relay network that the Alliance was using had been compromised. If the battle continued, it would open a data black hole that would doom every Valdrak ship. With the Imperator on the verge of collapse, Cirrus made an unthinkable decision. "All Valdrak's vessels," he broadcast on an emergency channel. "Abandon the Imperator to preserve the fleet. I repeat, save your ships and withdraw from the Black Mist Pit immediately." The order shocked the entire Valdrak's command structure. Never in the Dominion's history had a captain countermanded an admiral's orders in battle. Yet, as the surviving Valdrak ships began their retreat, the wisdom of Cirrus's decision became apparent. The Imperator exploded in a blinding flash, taking Admiral Vex and thousands of crew members with it. The Earth Alliance fleet quickly gained the upper hand, illuminating the ancient Sigma Prime relay. The map of the universe trembled as a series of jump relays activated, opening paths to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The destruction of the Imperator caused the collapse of high-level Valdrax information flow for several hours, throwing the political council into chaos. Admiral Talonvex, having somehow survived the destruction of his flagship, was forced to take responsibility for the disaster and faced a military tribunal before the Council of Ascendants. The Valdrax Dominion not only lost a fleet, but now faced the prospect of losing control over more than 30 relay stations, the transportation and supply network on which their empire depended. Through the reactivated relays, the call, "Humanity Returns," spread across space. Resistance groups that had been hiding under Valdrax cover in the outer regions began to rise up simultaneously. Systems that had been exploited by the Valdrax as fuel depots were reactivated, supporting the Earth Alliance as more ancient ships gathered together. Saris Kale faced a new choice. After the loss of the Imperator, he received orders to return to the orbital citadel, the floating Valdrax capital, to appear before the Council. However, he secretly copied the complete relay map and technical data of the Earth Alliance, suggesting that Saris might join or betray the Valdrax. As he stood at the threshold of the orbital citadel, his contemplative gaze questioned, "Does the Valdrax Dominion still deserve to exist?" 4 ancient fleets had completed the Awakening Protocol under the command of Fleet Admiral Rowan Trent. The Earth Alliance officially issued a manifesto. 20,000 years of silence ends. We return only to protect the legacy of civilization. Numerous relay stations were restored, with the Sleeper Fleet now controlling 40% of the ancient relay network, creating interconnectivity throughout the galaxy. The Valdrax Political Council engaged in fierce debate. One faction wanted to make peace with the Earth Alliance to maintain autonomy, submitting to the Alliance in exchange for territory, while extremists wanted to declare total war. Saris Kale appeared before the Council, presenting the technical data he had gathered, proposing cooperation to build a new network, replacing the ancient relays with hybrid technology, combining Earth Alliance and Valdrax engineering. "The fact remains," Saris told the assembled council members, "that we cannot defeat the Earth Alliance technology through force alone. Their ancient weapons tore through our most advanced defenses as though they were paper." "This is defeatist talk," shouted one council member. "One battle does not decide a war." "It does when that battle reveals a fundamental truth," Saris countered. "Their technology, despite being 20,000 years old, still surpasses ours in key areas. Imagine what we could accomplish by combining our innovations with their foundation." The council chamber erupted in arguments, with accusations of treason competing with calls for pragmatic cooperation. Eventually, a historic virtual meeting was arranged between Fleet Admiral Rowan Trent and Saris Kale, a dialogue that would shape the future of the galaxy. "Can we write history together?" Rowan asked. "Or must we struggle for another 20,000 years?" The Sigma-47 Accord was eventually signed. The Earth Alliance reclaimed 60% of the relays. The Valdrax retained the remaining 40%, and they agreed to join forces against external threats, such as remnants of an even more ancient civilization. Just as the accord was being signed, an entirely new signal flickered at the edge of the Omega Prime relay, declaring, "The 40,000-year silence is about to end." Rowan Trent and Saris Kale looked at the relay map. A shadowy ship form, alien to both the Earth Alliance and the Valdrax, was moving toward the Gaia sector, the region that had once been ancient Earth. Captain Saris Kale stood on the observation deck of the orbital citadel, gazing out at the vast expanse of stars that formed the heart of Valdrax territory. Behind him, the massive doors slid open, and the soft footfalls of Lieutenant Mara Kell echoed in the empty chamber. "They've been deliberating for 6 hours," she said, coming to stand beside him. "No one has ever challenged the council so directly and lived to tell about it." Saris gave a thin smile. Perhaps I'll be the first. Or the last, Mara replied, concern evident in her voice. The extremist faction is calling for your immediate execution. They're claiming you betrayed the Dominion by ordering the fleet to abandon the Imperator. I saved thousands of lives, Saris said firmly. The Imperator was lost the moment the Alliance targeted its communication array. Had the rest of the fleet remained, we would have lost everything. Mara nodded. I know that. And deep down, I think the Council knows it too. But they need someone to blame for this catastrophe. The door opened again, and Commander Darius Finch entered, his face grave. Captain, he said with a formal bow, the Council requests your presence. Saris straightened his uniform. Then let's not keep them waiting. The Council chamber was a vast semicircular room, with 13 elevated platforms arranged in a crescent. Upon each platform sat a member of the Valdrax Political Council, the ultimate authority in the Dominion. Captain Saris Kale, intoned the Central Counselor, an ancient Valdrax with pale features and cold eyes. You stand accused of insubordination, dereliction of duty, and indirect responsibility for the destruction of the Imperator and the death of Admiral Talon Vex. Saris stood at attention, his expression neutral. I made a tactical decision to preserve the majority of our fleet when it became clear that the Imperator could not be saved. And yet, came another voice from the Council, you took it upon yourself to countermand the direct orders of your superior officer. I did, Saris acknowledged, because continuing the engagement would have resulted in the loss of not just the Imperator, but our entire deployed force. He activated a holographic display, showing the battle data he had collected. The Earth Alliance was not merely attacking our ships, they were systematically compromising our relay network. Had we continued the battle, they would have gained access to our entire communication infrastructure. The Council members exchanged glances, some skeptical, others thoughtful. Even if what you say is true, the Central Counselor said, it does not excuse your actions. The chain of command exists for a reason. Captain. With respect, Saris replied. Sometimes, survival requires adaptation. The Earth Alliance has returned after 20,000 years of silence. Their technology, despite its age, proved superior to ours in direct combat. We can either learn from this encounter or perish in denial. He gestured to another holographic display, showing the technical data he had gathered on the Alliance relay network. I propose a new approach, he continued. Rather than continuing a war we cannot win, we should seek cooperation. The Earth Alliance controls 60% of the ancient relays, but they lack our understanding of modern space dynamics. Together, we could create a hybrid system that benefits both civilizations. Murmurs rippled through the Council. Some voices were outraged, others intrigued. This is heresy, shouted one counselor. The Valdrax Dominion does not compromise with inferior species. Are they inferior? Saris challenged. Their sleeper ships maintained perfect functionality for 20,000 years. Their weapons penetrated our most advanced defenses with ease. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered our assessment. The debate raged for hours, with the Council deeply divided. Finally, the Central Counselor raised a hand for silence. Captain Kale, your proposal is unprecedented, but these are unprecedented times. The return of the Earth Alliance has shaken the foundations of our dominion. Perhaps a new approach is indeed necessary. He gestured to an aide, who brought forward a secure communication device. We have received a request for direct dialogue from Fleet Admiral Rowan Trent of the Earth Alliance. They are proposing what they call the Sigma 47 Accord, a treaty that would divide control of the relay network between our civilizations. Saris nodded. I believe this is our best path forward. Then, you shall be our emissary, the Central Counselor declared. Establish communication with Fleet Admiral Trent and negotiate terms that preserve the dignity and security of the Valdrax Dominion. As Saris left the council chamber, Mara and Darius fell into step beside him. That was Unexpected, Darius said quietly. I thought for sure they would have you executed. They still might, Saris replied. But first, they need me to clean up this mess. What will you say to the Alliance Admiral? Mara asked. Saris considered the question as they walked toward the communication center. I'll tell him the truth, that we stand at a crossroads. We can either forge a new path together or destroy each other in a war that will leave the galaxy in ruins. The communication center was a circular room dominated by a large holographic projector. Technicians worked frantically to establish a secure connection with the Earth Alliance flagship. Channel established, Captain, announced the lead technician. Earth Alliance Fleet Admiral Rowan Trent is standing by. Saris took a deep breath and stepped onto the communication platform. The holographic projector hummed to life, and the image of Rowan Trent materialized, a tall man with weathered features and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. Captain Kale, Trent greeted him, his voice formal, but not hostile. I understand you speak for the Valdrax Dominion now. I do, Admiral, Saris confirmed, at least for the purposes of this negotiation. Then let us speak plainly, Trent said. 20,000 years ago, the Earth Alliance made a decision to withdraw from galactic politics. We placed our hopes for humanity's future in the Sleeper Fleet, vessels that would preserve our civilization until the time was right to reemerge. And now you believe that time has come, Saris observed. We had no choice, Trent countered. Our automated systems detected the systematic destruction of our relay network by Valdrax forces. Had we remained in stasis, eventually, our ships would have been discovered and destroyed. Saris nodded slowly. I won't deny that the Dominion has been aggressive in its expansion, but perhaps this confrontation offers an opportunity for both our civilizations. What sort of opportunity? Trent asked, his expression cautious. A partnership, Saris proposed. Your ancient technology combined with our modern innovations. The Earth Alliance controls 60% of the relay network, but the Valdrax have developed new propulsion systems and defense mechanisms that could enhance those relays. Trent considered this. And what would the Valdrax gain from such an arrangement? Stability, Saris replied simply. The return of the Earth Alliance has already inspired rebellion throughout the outer regions of our dominion. Worlds that chafed under our rule now see hope in your resurgence. A protracted war between our civilizations would tear the galaxy apart. So you propose peace out of pragmatism, not principle, Trent observed. Does the motivation matter if the outcome benefits both our peoples? Saris countered. A hint of a smile touched Trent's lips. Perhaps not. The question remains, can we write the next chapter of history together? Or are we doomed to struggle against each other for another 20,000 years? I believe cooperation is possible, Saris said firmly. The Sigma 47 Accord your people have proposed offers a framework we can build upon. Then let us begin, Trent agreed. Over the next several days, negotiations proceeded with surprising speed. The Earth Alliance would retain control of 60% of the relay network, focusing on the regions that had once been the heart of human territory. The Valdrax would maintain control over the remaining 40%, particularly in the outer regions where their presence was strongest. Most importantly, both civilizations agreed to share technology and collaborate on the development of a new, hybrid relay system that would benefit both their peoples. As Saris and Trent prepared to formally sign the accord, technicians on both sides noted an anomaly, a strange signal emanating from the edge of known space, near the Omega Prime relay. What is it? Saris asked, as analysts worked to decipher the transmission. Unknown, replied a Valdrax technician. It doesn't match any pattern in our database. Trent frowned, consulting with his own experts. It's not of Earth Alliance origin either. Finally, the signal was isolated and translated. The 40,000-year silence is about to end. On the relay map, a shadowy ship form appeared, its design alien to both the Earth Alliance and the Valdrax. It was moving steadily toward the Gaia sector, the region that had once been home to ancient Earth. Cirrus and Trent exchanged a look of shared concern. "It seems," Trent said quietly, "that we may have an even greater reason to unite our forces." "Indeed," Cirrus agreed. "Perhaps the true test of our accord will come sooner than we anticipated." As they formally signed the Sigma 47 Accord, both leaders knew that a new chapter in galactic history was beginning, one that would require the combined strength of both their civilizations to face whatever was emerging from the depths of space. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's 20,000-year silence came to an end, only to be confronted by an even older silence that was now breaking. The formal signing of the Sigma 47 Accord took place aboard the neutral space station, Harmony Point, hastily established in the boundary zone between Earth Alliance and Valdrax territories. Representatives from both civilizations gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall, their faces reflecting a mixture of hope, skepticism, and lingering suspicion. Fleet Admiral Rowan Trent stood tall in his ceremonial Earth Alliance uniform, a deep blue adorned with gold insignia that had not been seen in the galaxy for 20 millennia. Beside him, Captain Saris Kale represented the Valdrax Dominion, his charcoal uniform with crimson trim, a stark contrast to Trent's attire. "Today marks not an end, but a beginning," Trent declared, his voice carrying throughout the hall. "For 20,000 years, humanity retreated from the galactic stage. We slept while the universe changed around us. Now we awaken to find a new power has risen in our absence." He turned to face Saris. "The Valdrax Dominion has built an empire upon the foundations of what we left behind. Some might see this as reason for conflict, for reclamation through force. But wisdom teaches us that the future cannot be built by clinging to the past." Saris stepped forward, his expression solemn. "The Valdrax Dominion acknowledges the historical significance of the Earth Alliance and recognizes your rightful claim to portions of the relay network. This accord establishes a framework for cooperation rather than competition, for mutual advancement rather than mutual destruction." Together, they activated the holographic display showing the newly divided relay network, glowing blue for Alliance-controlled sectors, crimson for Valdrax territories, and purple where joint administration would be implemented. As the audience applauded politely, Lieutenant Kaya Drake approached Trent with a concerned expression, whispering urgently in his ear. Trent's face darkened. He turned to Saris. "We need to speak privately." Minutes later, they stood in a secure briefing room, joined by their most trusted advisors. The holographic display now showed the mysterious signal from the Omega Prime relay, enhanced and analyzed by the combined expertise of both civilizations. "The signal is strengthening," Lieutenant Drake reported. "And it's not alone anymore. We're detecting multiple anomalies approaching from the same vector." "Any progress on deciphering the message beyond the initial phrase?" Saris asked. Dr. Ilara Voss, the Earth Alliance archaeologist and relay expert who had recently emerged from cryosleep to assist Trent, shook her head. "Only fragments, references to the first civilization and the reckoning. But the structure of the language itself is unsettling." "Unsettling how?" Saris pressed. "It doesn't follow patterns consistent with any known species," Ilara explained. "The syntax suggests a fundamentally different way of perceiving reality, one that predates both human and Valdrax cognitive structures." Mara Kell, studying the trajectory data, looked up with alarm. "Whatever they are, they're accelerating. At current speed, they'll reach the Gaia sector within 3 standard months. We need to establish a joint defensive position," Trent decided. "If these entities pose a threat, neither of our civilizations can afford to face them divided." Saris nodded in agreement. "I'll contact the Council immediately. We should redirect our combined fleets to establish a perimeter around the Gaia sector." "There's something else," Ilara interrupted, her eyes fixed on an ancient data tablet. During my studies of Earth's pre-Alliance history, I encountered references to a civilization that supposedly existed 40,000 years ago, before humanity achieved interstellar travel. What kind of references? Trent asked. Mostly dismissed as myths or misinterpretations of archaeological findings, she continued. But they consistently described beings who moved between stars before we crawled from oceans, and who would return when the cosmic cycle completed. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. "Are you suggesting," Sarah said carefully, "that these signals might be connected to actual entities that existed before either of our civilizations?" "I'm suggesting," Alara replied, "that we may be facing something that both our ancestors encountered, and apparently survived only through some kind of retreat or hibernation strategy, similar to what the Earth Alliance implemented." "Then we need more than just military preparation," Trent decided. "We need knowledge. Dr. Voss, I want you to assemble a team of historians and archaeologists from both our civilizations. Comb through every record, every artifact, every fragment of ancient knowledge that might tell us what we're facing." "And if what we learn suggests we cannot win through conventional means?" Saris asked quietly. Trent met his gaze steadily. "Then we'll find unconventional means. The Earth Alliance didn't survive 20,000 years of dormancy, only to fall now. And I suspect the Valdraks aren't ready to surrender their empire either." "No," Saris agreed. "We are not." As they returned to the assembly hall to complete the ceremony, the weight of this new threat hung over them. Yet paradoxically, it had accomplished what might otherwise have taken years of careful diplomacy. It had given the Earth Alliance and the Valdraks Dominion a common purpose. The signing concluded with additional clauses establishing joint defense initiatives and shared research programs. As the delegates dispersed, Trent and Saris remained, looking out through the station's massive viewport at the stars beyond. "Do you believe in destiny, Captain Kale?" Trent asked suddenly. Saris considered the question. "I believe in patterns, in cycles that repeat because the underlying conditions remain constant." "And what pattern do you see here?" "Two civilizations, forced to adapt or perish," Saris replied. "Just as the Earth Alliance chose hibernation when faced with an untenable situation, and just as the Valdraks chose pragmatism over pride when confronted with your return." Trent nodded slowly. "Adaptation. Not merely survival, but evolution. Perhaps that's the true test we're facing." "Perhaps," Saris agreed. "But evolution requires time, and I'm not certain how much of that we have left." As if in answer to his concern, a technician approached with a data pad. "Sirs, we've completed the preliminary analysis of the approaching vessels. They'll reach the outer relay network in approximately 60 standard days, far sooner than our initial estimates." Trent and Saris exchanged a look of shared determination. The clock was ticking, and the galaxy's newest alliance would soon face its first trial by fire. In the days that followed, a flurry of activity swept through both civilizations. The Earth Alliance awakened more of its sleeper ships, bringing online ancient but formidable vessels that had not seen action for 20 millennia. The Valdraks Dominion mobilized its most advanced battle groups, reinforcing key positions throughout the relay network. On the research front, Dr. Alara Voss and Lieutenant Mara Kell formed an unlikely partnership, combining the Earth Alliance's deep historical knowledge with the Valdraks' cutting-edge analytical techniques. Together, they established a joint research facility on the neutral station, Harmony Point, where scholars from both civilizations worked around the clock to uncover any information about the approaching threat. "We've found something," Alara announced during a high-priority briefing 2 weeks after the signing. She activated a holographic display showing ancient cave paintings discovered on a remote world in what had once been the farthest reaches of Earth Alliance territory. "These markings date back approximately 38,000 years, she explained. "They depict a conflict between primitive humanoids and entities described in accompanying texts as those who dwell between stars." The paintings showed elongated, angular shapes descending from the sky, surrounded by smaller humanoid figures in postures of both combat and supplication. Similar iconography has been found on 17 different worlds, Mara added, expanding the display to show comparable images from various archaeological sites. Some Valdrax, some former Alliance. The consistency is remarkable. So these entities, whatever they are, have visited our regions of space before, Trent observed. Not just visited, Alara corrected. According to these records, they claim to be the original inhabitants, the first civilization that seeded the galaxy with the building blocks of life. Are we to believe they created both humans and Valdrax? Saris asked skeptically. Not directly, Alara clarified. But they may have established the conditions that allowed our respective evolutionary paths to unfold. And more importantly, they appear to operate on a cosmic cycle, emerging every 40,000 years to reset the galaxy. Reset? Trent repeated. What does that mean exactly? Alara and Mara exchanged uncomfortable glances. The records are not entirely clear, Mara admitted. But they consistently describe a process of purification or renewal that involves the elimination of unworthy civilizations. And who determines worthiness? Saris asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. They do, Alara confirmed grimly. Based on criteria we don't fully understand, but which seem to involve technological development, cultural patterns, and something repeatedly translated as resonance with the cosmic harmony. The implications hung heavy in the air. They weren't just facing an external threat. They were facing judgment from entities that considered themselves the rightful arbiters of galactic evolution. How did our ancestors respond to this threat? Trent asked. That's the most troubling part, Alara replied. We don't know. There's a gap in the historical record immediately following these encounters. When documentation resumes, sometimes centuries later, the civilizations have changed dramatically, often regressed technologically and fragmented culturally. As though they were reset, Saris concluded darkly. Precisely, Mara agreed. And based on the timing, the Earth Alliance's decision to enter hibernation 20,000 years ago may have been in preparation for this cycle's return. Trent frowned. But that would mean they expected the cycle 20,000 years ago. Not now. Unless they miscalculated, Alara suggested. Or unless something disrupted the cycle itself. The briefing continued with tactical assessments and preliminary defense strategies. But the fundamental question remained unanswered. How could they resist a force that had apparently subjugated or reset countless civilizations over tens of thousands of years? As the meeting concluded, Trent asked Saris to remain behind. When they were alone, the fleet admiral spoke with unusual candor. What if we're approaching this wrong? He asked. What if military resistance isn't the answer? What alternative do you propose? Saris countered. Submission. Communication, Trent replied. Understanding. If these entities judge civilizations based on criteria we don't comprehend, perhaps our first priority should be to decipher those criteria. Saris considered this. You're suggesting we try to prove our worthiness rather than defend our existence. I'm suggesting we keep all options open, Trent clarified. Prepare for battle, yes, but also prepare for dialogue. After all, both our civilizations have demonstrated an ability to adapt and cooperate despite 20,000 years of separation and fundamental differences. That cooperation is barely 2 weeks old, Saris pointed out, and already facing its greatest test. Then, let's ensure it passes that test, Trent said firmly. Whatever form the challenge takes. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication. The mysterious vessels had accelerated again, and now the countdown to their arrival had shortened from 60 days to just 30. The pressure of imminent contact forced both civilizations to accelerate their preparations. Joint fleet exercises began, with Earth Alliance and Valdrax vessels learning to coordinate their vastly different tactical approaches. Research teams worked without rest, scouring ancient records and analyzing the increasingly complex signals emanating from the approaching fleet. 25 days before projected contact, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young Valdrax engineer named Terrace Venn, working with recovered Earth Alliance relay technology, discovered a previously undetected frequency embedded within the relay network itself. "It's been there all along," he explained to Saris and Trent during an emergency briefing. "A dormant communication channel woven into the very architecture of the relays, not just the Earth Alliance ones, but all of them, including those the Valdrax built independently." "How is that possible?" Saris demanded. "We designed our relay extensions ourselves, based on reverse-engineered principles from the original network," Terrace pointed out. "The frequency was so fundamental to the technology that we incorporated it without recognizing its significance." "And what is its significance?" Trent asked. "It appears to be a direct link to the approaching entities," Terrace revealed, activating a holographic display showing complex wave patterns. "When isolated and amplified, it contains what seems to be a continuous message, cycling through mathematical sequences, linguistic patterns, and what our xenobiologists believe may be genetic codes." "A test," Alara breathed, suddenly understanding. "They've been testing us all along." "Explain," Trent prompted. "The relay network itself is the test," she elaborated. "How we use it, modify it, expand it, all of that data has been transmitted back to them through this embedded frequency. They've been monitoring our development for thousands of years. Then they already know everything about us," Saris said grimly. "Our strengths, our weaknesses, our divisions, and our recent alliance." "Not everything," Alara countered. "They know what we've done, but not necessarily why we've done it. Not our motivations, our values, our capacity for change." "And you believe those factors might influence their judgment?" Trent asked. "It's our best hope," she replied simply. The discovery of the monitoring frequency changed the strategic calculus entirely. Rather than focusing solely on military preparations, both civilizations now devoted significant resources to crafting a response, a message that would be transmitted back along the same channel, demonstrating their understanding of the technology and their willingness to communicate. 15 days before projected contact, they were ready. In a solemn ceremony aboard Harmony Point, Trent and Saris jointly activated the transmission, a carefully constructed sequence that combined the mathematical precision of Valdrax communication with the emotional resonance of Earth Alliance cultural expressions. "And now we wait," Trent said quietly, as the message began its journey through the relay network. They didn't have to wait long. Within hours, the approaching fleet altered course, not away from the galaxy as some had hoped, but directly toward Harmony Point itself. "They've received our message," Saris observed, "and they're coming to us." "All forces on alert," Trent ordered. "But no aggressive posturing. We've invited communication, and we must be prepared to follow through." The final days passed in tense anticipation. The joint fleet maintained a defensive perimeter around Harmony Point, but with weapons powered down in a gesture of non-aggression. Scientists continued to analyze the increasingly complex signals emanating from the approaching vessels, finding patterns that suggested curiosity rather than hostility. Finally, the day of contact arrived. A single vessel, massive but elegant, its design unlike anything seen in the galaxy before, detached from the approaching fleet and moved toward Harmony Point at a deliberate pace. "They're requesting permission to dock," reported the station's communications officer, disbelief evident in her voice. Trent and Saris exchanged a look, both understanding the historic significance of this moment. "Grant permission," they said in unison. As the alien vessel connected with Harmony Point, a delegation formed to greet whatever emerged. Trent and Saris at its center, flanked by their most trusted advisors and a carefully selected group of scientists and diplomats from both civilizations. The docking port cycled open, revealing a corridor of shifting light and geometric patterns that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. From within this impossible space emerged three entities, tall, luminous beings, whose forms seemed both solid and fluid simultaneously, their features suggesting humanoid structure, but with proportions and symmetry that evoked something far more ancient. "Greetings, children of our seeding," they spoke, their voices resonating not through air, but directly within the minds of all present. After 40,000 cycles, we return to evaluate what has bloomed from our planting. Trent stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We welcome you as the representatives of the Earth Alliance and the Valdrax Dominion, two civilizations that have chosen cooperation over conflict." "Recent cooperation," the central entity corrected, its tone neither judgmental nor approving. "For most of your histories, you have chosen isolation or domination." "We learn," Saris replied, joining Trent. "We adapt. We evolve not just physically, but culturally and philosophically. So claim all species when judgment approaches," the entity observed. "Yet few demonstrate true capacity for transcendence." "Then allow us to demonstrate now," Trent proposed, "not through words, but through actions. Judge us not by our past divisions, but by our current unity in the face of the unknown." The entities conferred silently, their luminous forms pulsing with complex patterns of light. Finally, the central being addressed them again. "Your proposal has merit. We will observe your unity and determine whether it represents genuine evolution or merely tactical alliance against a common threat." "How will you observe?" Saris asked cautiously. "We will remain," the entity stated simply. "One cycle, what you would measure as one standard galactic year. During this time, we will integrate with your societies, study your interactions, evaluate your potential." "And at the end of this cycle?" Trent inquired, though he suspected he knew the answer. "At the end, we will judge," the entity confirmed. "If found worthy, your civilizations will be granted autonomy within the cosmic harmony. If found wanting—" The being didn't need to complete the sentence. The implication was clear. As the entities moved among the delegation, beginning their observation immediately, Trent and Sarah stepped aside for a private word. "1 year to prove the worthiness of our entire civilizations," Saris murmured. "No pressure." Despite the gravity of the situation, Trent found himself smiling. "If you'd told me a month ago that I'd be standing beside a Valdrax captain, preparing to defend our joint civilizations against cosmic judges, I'd have thought you were suffering from cryo-sickness. And if you'd told me I'd be allied with an Earth Alliance admiral against entities claiming to have seeded all life in the galaxy, I'd have had you evaluated for mental stability." Saris returned. Their brief moment of levity faded as they watched the luminous beings interacting with their respective delegations, studying, analyzing, judging. "Do you think we can succeed?" Saris asked quietly. Trent considered the question seriously. "I think we've already begun to. 20,000 years of separation, followed by open conflict, resolved through dialogue and mutual respect rather than destruction. If that doesn't demonstrate evolutionary potential, I don't know what would." "Let's hope they agree," Saris said, his gaze fixed on the visitors. "For all our sakes." As the entities continued their initial observations, an alert sounded from the communication center. A junior officer approached hesitantly. "Admirals," she addressed them both, apparently unable to distinguish between their different ranks. "We're receiving a new signal from the edge of the Omega Prime relay. It's similar to the first civilization's pattern, but distinctly different." Trent and Saris exchanged a concerned look before turning to the central entity. "Are there others of your kind approaching?" Trent asked. The luminous being became utterly still. its light patterns freezing in a configuration that somehow conveyed alarm. "Not of our kind," it responded after a moment. "Something else. Something unexpected." And in that moment, both Trent and Saris realized that the test had just become infinitely more complex. They weren't simply being judged on their own merits. They were facing an unknown variable that even the self-proclaimed first civilization hadn't anticipated. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's 20,000-year silence ended, only to find itself caught between ancient judges and an even more mysterious force emerging from the depths of space. Whatever came next would determine not just the fate of the Earth Alliance and the Valdrex Dominion, but potentially the future of all life in the galaxy. For 20,000 years, humanity had slept in the darkness between stars. Now awake, they found themselves facing not just the legacy of their past, but the judgment of their future. And somewhere beyond the Omega Prime Relay, something stirred that would test them all in ways none could predict. The story had only just begun.